Well, let's speak now to Marc Ostwald, Chief Economist at ADM Investor Services International. Thank you so much for joining us, Marc. What impact will this interest rate cut have on Eurozone countries?
I think it'll actually be very limited. It's basically effectively an acknowledgement that with inflation coming down, perhaps rates are a little bit too high, but they need to remain a little bit too high, and benefit for consumers very minimal. The hard work in terms of the correction that we've seen in the European property prices has been done by prices, and this will not actually change that much. There is still a fairly substantial problem with the European real estate sector, having reached very, very overbought levels in prior years.
However, we are told that we're now over the highest point of interest rates. Are we looking at ongoing cuts over the next few months and years that could eventually bring us back to those pre-pandemic levels?
No. We are looking at a series of rate cuts, both in Europe, in North America, obviously in Japan they're going the opposite direction, but we will not be getting down to the sort of levels that we were either during or pre-pandemic, for the simple reason that there is more inflation in the world. And if we're actually at the right level in terms of targets, then we don't need the sort of emergency rate levels that we had in the previous decade.
Talk to me, you mentioned it's going to have minimal impact. What difference could it eventually make, especially if there are a few more cuts ahead of us?
Eventually it will basically, it should help improve credit demand. Madame Lagarde was very keen to note that credit growth is sluggish amid weak demand, and that's partly because of higher rates. So as interest rates fall, so credit demand should improve. But that's also, to a certain extent, dependent on the economies getting some traction. And as Mr. Draghi pointed out earlier in the week, and as you pointed out, there is a lot of work to be done. Europe's being squeezed by the US and by China, and it's neither very productive nor is it very competitive.
Long road ahead. Thank you very much, Marc Ostwald, Chief Economist at ADM Investor Services International.